I know this video may seem like a little bit of a reach. However, I really want Nate Diaz to reconsider his choice to leave the UFC. And I want Nate Diaz to stay in the UFC. And I want the UFC itself to make sure that he stays in the UFC. Because in my opinion, a massive fight that they could make right now would be Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. The trilogy, because scheduling-wise it makes sense. You give Nate Diaz the rest of the year off. He comes back early next year. Conor McGregor's going to be back in early next year as well. They can make that fight happen. It would be a massive pay-per-view card. Nate Diaz's stock is really high right now because he's coming off a big win against Tony Ferguson. Nate needs to reconsider leaving the UFC. I know this is a reach, but in my opinion, there's way more for him in the UFC than outside of it. And if this is the case of the UFC being the mean business that they are and not giving Nate what he wants, if I was in charge of the UFC right now, and I know the UFC are likely not going to do this, but maybe one of them will watch my video and change their mind. And that's what I'm hoping for here. Beat Jake Paul's offer. One fight deal for Nate Diaz. You will make profit from him. I don't know why the control aspect has to be a part of it as well. Jake Paul has less money than you. Billion-dollar company of the UFC. Shocker. And I know, why am I mentioning Jake Paul? Who really is Nate Diaz going to fight outside the UFC? Who's Nate Diaz going to fight outside the UFC? He wants to box a little bit, maybe. I don't know what he wants to do. He says he wants to go and box. He also said he's open for the idea of a trilogy with Conor McGregor as well. But who really does Nate Diaz want to fight outside the UFC? Dan Hardy? Tyron Woodley? Dylan Dennis? Logan Paul? Jake Paul? Like, who really is there right now? What is he going to do if not Jake Paul? Someone leave it in the comments below. If it's not in the UFC, who is Nate fighting that isn't called Jake or Logan Paul? Hey, UFC. Beat Jake or Logan Paul's numbers. You billion-dollar company. And give Nate Diaz a one-fight deal. And I'm sure he will accept. The Conor McGregor trilogy. Here's a share of the pay-per-view. Here's 10 million up front. He's a massive superstar. His stock is higher than ever. He's now an even bigger star than before after his win at UFC 279. I don't understand why they wouldn't be salivating to make that fight happen. And I know why they might not want to make it happen. If he beats Conor McGregor and leaves, it's bad for us and Conor McGregor. If Conor McGregor loses, I don't care about Conor McGregor anymore. And I doubt many others will either. So if the UFC's thinking to themselves, well, we don't want Nate to come back and beat McGregor, and then all of a sudden, you know, he leaves the UFC for good, and now we can't do anything with McGregor because his stock's really low. If he loses to anyone, I think the majority of the public are going to consider Conor McGregor done. And they're not really going to be interested in his future matchups. Especially if he can't be involved in massive matchups because he's just lost to Nate Diaz and he isn't ranked in any division because of it. Please. Make Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor the trilogy. Just do it for us. I really want to see that build up. I really want to see that fight. I think it's a very competitive matchup between the pair of them. I want to see it at 170. Make it happen, please. If Nate wins, cool. If Conor wins, great. He can move on in the UFC and start looking for names in the welterweight division. Maybe he can look for a Jorge Masvidal at some point. Who knows? We know they're bringing McGregor back. I would probably guess McGregor's going to come back early next year. I know he sometimes makes a random tweet one night about the fact that he's not going to come back. But he is. We know McGregor's going to be back early next year. So why not just pay Nate? More than Jake Paul and Logan Paul can afford to pay Nate. Why not? You probably paid him millions to fight Tony Ferguson, or like $1 million and a share of the pay-per-view. The Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz trilogy is bigger now than ever. One, because the first 2 fights that they had, especially the rematch, sold more than like McGregor versus Alvarez. So it's already more of a draw because of Nate's name factor than some other matchups that McGregor's had, even for world championships. So make that fight if you want to sell a lot of pay-per-views, because we don't have stars right now, man. We can't let Nate go. Even if it's for one more fight, to juice up McGregor if he wins, and then he can sort of take the juice that he gets from Nate Diaz and take it into the rest of the division and then lose to someone else, and then Nate can take the juice from McGregor and apply the pay-per-view juice over here, and then it can all trickle down. Please. One fight deal. Hey, Nate, we know Jake Paul's going to offer you $4 million to fight him in a box. I know that's what Nate's doing. And I don't want to see it. And I'm hiding why I don't want to see it. Not just because I think it would be a shame for Nate's career to go down that pathway because of the martial artist that he is, but because I think he'd lose to Jake Paul. Because I'm considering like Jake Paul will fight Nate Diaz if Jake Paul beats Anderson Silva. Or maybe Nate Diaz will fight Anderson Silva. Who knows? It's not as big of a fight because it won't be a build-up of animosity or anything like that. But it's still a big fight, and Silva's name would be bigger than ever if he did beat Jake Paul. So I think that's what Nate's doing. I don't see anything else possible out there for him in terms of combat sports. And he said he wants to come back to the UFC at some point. So I feel like he's given us signs and giving the UFC a sign like, listen, I'm free. I have all the negotiation power. Butter me up. You know what I mean? Entice me back into the promotion. Do something good for me. Make it special for old Nate. You know what I mean? After all I've done for the promotion. I know he dissed The Rock's pair of shoes, which was a hilarious moment, by the way. But please, Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, make it happen. I need to see that fight happen. I need to see it. I need to see the trilogy right now. It makes perfect sense for the pair of them. I think McGregor has a good chance of winning it at 170. I think Nate has a good chance of winning it. Who knows what kind of McGregor we're going to see coming back after a long layoff with an injury. Let us see that fight. I ain't trying to see it in a boxing ring. I ain't trying to see it in some knockoff promotion of McGregor fight promotions along the side of Real Fight Incorporated. Like, it's just not the same as it is on a UFC build-up. It just wouldn't be the same. We need one more super fight card with McGregor Nate Diaz, with a great undercard, with names like Sean O'Malley on there, with like Tuivasa and Aspinall trying to recover themselves on the card as well. We need another, who else is some, Bryce Mitchell on the card, some other futures, Paddy Pimblett on that card as well. We need to get some star power dispersed with another massive McGregor fight. And I think the Nate Diaz fight is the perfect one. And the fact that he's leaving the door open for that trilogy. And he's leaving the door open to come back to the UFC as well. Why go over to fight Jake Paul? And it must be just because he wants that big paycheck. So why, UFC? Why not read the situation and say, okay, we don't normally do this, but because Nate is such a big name, and the him versus McGregor trilogy is such a big deal, and it would sell 2 million pay-per-views, or it would sell like 1.7 million, 1.8 million, 1.6 million, however much it would sell. Why don't we just pay him 10 mil? Here's a share of the pay-per-view as well. One fight deal. We're going to profit off of it. You're going to make more than that. I feel like it's more about the, yeah, because I said so. You know, your parents used to fucking tell you off when you were a kid. And there was no logical reason for them telling you to do something. Why am I doing this? Why do I have to do this? Because I'm telling you to do it. That was the most annoying thing when I was a kid. When there was no logical reason to be told to do something other than the fact that they told you to do it. So you must do it. That was annoying. That's how it feels like the UFC is doing it. And I think they need to put that aside for just this one moment and give us McGregor Nate the trilogy. He's left the idea open. He's left the idea open of coming back to the UFC. One fight deal. Nate, fight this fight. You can leave afterwards if you want. You versus McGregor the trilogy. Let's make another amazing night, because I realized the other cards just aren't the same. You know, listen, Usman versus Edwards for 2 was an amazing ending. The build-up of that card, the feeling before that fight started, it just wasn't the same as when Nate was on the card or when McGregor's normally on the card. And you go before that to UFC 277, Pena versus Nunes, Moreno Cara France. I was excited. I'm a huge MMA fan. It's just not the same. It's not the same as the other fighters. Adesanya Cannonier. Like, sure, Volkanovski Holloway, that was a big event. It's just not the same buzz. And it's not the same numbers that you see blowing up on Instagram and all of these views and engagements that things are getting as when Nate Diaz or Conor McGregor is on a card. Put them on a card together. Please. I don't want to see Nate lose to Jake Paul. Or win. Like, even if he wins, it's Jake Paul. Don't even get him involved. Why are we even talking about Jake Paul? Don't give him that opportunity. Seriously, though, guys, what's next for Nate Diaz? What, like, I want to go accomplish another sport, make it to the top of boxing, and maybe I'll come back later. So, Jake Paul, what's up? Pull up, let's box, you know? And I don't want to see that, man. I don't care how gangster he is in the build-up of a Jake Paul fight. I don't care. I just don't want to see him fight Jake Paul. I don't want that to be what's left of his career. I want to see another top-level fight between Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. We need that. The trilogy. I don't want to see it in some knockoff promotion. I know a lot of people are like, it's MMA, not the UFC, bro, and all that type of stuff. McGregor ain't going to get out of his contract anytime soon. They're going to put him through hell to get outside of a UFC contract. I don't want to see it I want to see it in the UFC, man, because they're the best at building up these fights. They're just the best compared to anything else. And if it's done elsewhere, it just won't be the same. So please, UFC employees, heed Nate giving you a sign of try and entice me back. Give him a fat load of money to fight Conor McGregor and make that fight happen, please. A share of the pay-per-view, 10 million flat. You will make profit on that card. You will. You know you will. I know you're 4.2 billion in debt that you owe because you bought the company for that, and you need to make sure you make more than that money, because otherwise it's a bad investment. WME. But you got bank. Give us McGregor Nate the trilogy in March of next year, with a rebounding O'Malley after Jan finishes him off in their fight coming up soon. With a rebounding O'Malley, maybe a rebounding Marlon Vera if he loses coming up, who knows, on the co-main event. Give us another big fight on that card as well. I just don't... Give us a Pimlet on that card. A Pimlet Tony Ferguson on that card. Just give us something. I want it, man. I want McGregor Nate 3, and I'm not going to let it slip so we can watch Nate fight Jake Paul, because that's all he's doing. So entice him back. Hey, UFC. This is the end message of the whole video. Hey, UFC. You $4.2 billion company have more money to offer Nate Diaz to fight than Jake Paul. That's all I'm going to say. Double it. I know Jake Paul's going to offer him like 3-4 million. Double it, triple it, give him the fucking money. I'm sick of this, man. Give him the money. Just make the fight. I don't want to see him fight Jake Paul. If he loses, it's just such a horrible thing. If he wins, cool. He shut up Jake Paul. He's a cool guy. But if he loses, if he loses to McGregor, who cares? If he loses to Jake Paul, it's just done for him. I don't want to... And then even if he comes back, it's like, dude, you lost to Jake Paul. Now you want to come back to the UFC? It's different after that. You know what I mean? It's like having Woodley back in the UFC. It just wouldn't work. So please, Make it happen. Get a grip of yourself, you fucking mugs. Pissing me off. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Sorry about this. I just needed to get this off my chest. We need this. See you later. Goodbye.